If you could erase one cybersecurity threat from existence, but had to bring back one outdated piece of technology that the world had to use, like landlines or floppy disks, what's the trade?
Oh man, let's just erase, human error.
Ooh.
All right, that's where I'm going to take that one. Now, I will happily bring back landlines. I do not want my daughter using a cell phone. Right? She's 8. She just got her first laptop, which I mistakenly made a MacBook Pro. Thought I locked it down. Guys, I work for a cybersecurity company. I should be able to lock this MacBook down from my daughter, but she looks at me and goes, "Well, I hacked it, Daddy," and I couldn't have been more proud.
So I feel like we should make bumper stickers that say, "Well, I hacked it, Daddy." That would sell like hotcakes.
Do we have to give royalties to James? Probably.
Totally. And I think we could probably also exchange the royalties for like some of his beard. Tell him like you've got to, trim it or grow it or some, trade-off.
We need to sell it where there's 1,000 of them and they're all, what is it called? Like serialized. So then there needs to be like a strand of his beard with each one so that it's authentic.
I like that a lot.
So if you were going to go back to one of those technologies, if you had the same question as James, like what's the one thing for you?
I like floppy disks. I think that's fun. I remember when you used to be able to like flip the little switch so that it could be write protected or not. And then like you could make the noise with the little top part. I'm all about floppy disks.
I'll give an answer that sort of requires a little bit of a mental leap. I'm going to say payphones, not because I want people to use payphones, but the reason that payphones were necessary is that people were out places socializing. And I feel like it's that, I want to just go and be around people, but there's no hangout spots. You go back and watch an old episode of Cheers, and growing up, you think, oh, that's such a cool environment. Everybody knows your name. That doesn't really exist. So I'm not saying we should go back to, the good old days, because I think a lot of what technology has given us in the last 20, 30 years has been amazing, has been life-changing. But I wish there were some way to incorporate our modern lifestyles with that old school approach of social gatherings. And maybe it's the next technology, teleportation. We're all just going to press a button and just warp over wherever we are, and that'll make socializing so much easier. But right now, it feels like everyone's so far away. My neighbors are so far away, whereas I used to know everyone on the block. So I'm saying payphones because to me, that symbolizes getting people together.
Reliability is a great thing, right? I think you could get very far in life by just being a reliable person, by just showing up on time and doing what you say you're going to do. I think the most frustrating moments for me at Nerdio as we've grown the company are times that we said we were going to do something for someone and we didn't do it. And I think that's almost the most important thing before you even get into like sort of what's the innovative nature of your business.
I literally couldn't agree with that more. Like they say showing up is more than half the battle. They don't say how much more than half the battle. And I feel like in 2025 and the way that things are going with customer experience, with, us all being consumers, like it might be 90% of the battle by like just being there and like doing the thing that you said you were going to do. You don't have to do it really well. You just have to be there to do it.
There are so many things that you are worried about, thinking about, concerned about, depending on, figuring out, etc., that you just want to be able to cross some of those off. And if there's something is dependable, you can cross that off. And so the biggest value you can provide is people just knowing that you're going to do that thing you said. I mean, it applies for us as a business. It applies personally as well. Empath's an upskill platform for MSPs. What's something most MSPs majorly need upskilling on?
How to help your employees upskill. Seriously, most MSPs that I've met were not trained how to manage other people ever. They just started businesses because they wanted to do something. One of the main reasons Empath exists, and probably the single biggest thing I see, is how to actually manage and enable other people.
I think reflecting back on that a couple months later, Dean struck on something interesting where in a sense, people started these businesses just because it's really hard to be part of a bigger business. You have to manage up, manage down, manage sideways across departments. You need to figure out what your role is while also figuring out the best role for all the people that you're working with and responsible for. And not that you don't have to do that running your own business, but when you put yourself right on top, it's kind of easy. You can be as big or small as you want. You don't have to be part of, a 20-person department that's part of a, 6,000-person office that's one of, 6 locations around the world. You can say, okay, I want to have the core of people that I like working with, and I can have them do the things that they're good at and kind of just quiet down. And it's kind of the easier path, but then they all want to grow. And that's where all of a sudden things start to get harder, where you can't just do it exactly the way you want.
Right. Starting with all of the hats means that you can decide which hats you want to continue to wear. Being put into a place where they're handing you a single hat means that you're limited, but then your being limited means, to your point, that you're more efficient in the way that you could wear the next hat should you be ready for the next hat.
And we've seen that exactly here. We started having to wear so many different hats, and then as we grew, we brought in other people who could help us by wearing many different hats. And as we continue to grow, we try to find people who are better and better at something, because as we become a bigger organization, it's a matter of getting people to be experts in the role, and people always want to be improving. So it's a matter of recognizing where people have the skill and getting them, up to speed in a way that they can contribute.
So is this hatception or hatmageddon?
Speaking of hats, you can't even tell from my background here, but this is a nice little reindeer hoodie I have on. I'm trying to just turn my head so that everyone who's been watching this whole long wondering why I'm dressed like a little warlock has this hoodie on. It's because I'm a reindeer.
You say warlock?
And like a druid maybe be better, something who's doing some sort of magic and wears the big hooded robe. If this were D&D, I would be half human, half reindeer, druid. That's what I'm going with. Final answer.
All right, well, go commune with nature.
Do you have that one moment where it was, the first time you got a new bicycle and oh my God, this is the greatest present ever?
Yes, I do. So I was 7 to 9 years old, in that range, and I remember sitting at the counter on the bar stool, getting one of my gifts, and it being from my sister. And it was a copy of RBI Baseball for the Nintendo. And I remember we had recently gotten the Nintendo, but we only had Super Mario and Duck Hunt, the combo cartridge. And so getting another game was awesome. Getting another game that was a baseball-related game was even more awesome. And then getting the gift from my sister was just a cherry on the top.
I think the one that I most remember, actually, it's not even the gift that I most remember, but every year we would go to my cousin's house for the big gift exchange with all the cousins. And what I most fondly remember is that the adults would always save their empty wrapping paper sticks. And those were called the Whompers. Me and my cousins were all 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. It was hard to keep our hands off the presents. It's hard to calm down and sit still while someone else. So if you misbehave, you're getting the Whomper. And that's what I most fondly remember of all those gatherings.
That's a fantastic memory. How many times did you get whomped?
All the time.
Happy holidays.
From the Helped team.